So, welcome once again, attendees, to the last session of AfA CONNECT Day 2. Although this is the last session, I hope that you're still keeping your eyes peeled because this session is going to be very, very interesting. Our main topic for this session will be about building healthy relationships between shelters and their neighbors, which will be presented by three great speakers that I'm going to introduce to you shortly. Well, before we begin, I want to introduce myself as the host of the session. So my name is Khalisya, but please call me Chicha. I am the lead coordinator of AfA's Dog and Cat Coalition, and it's very nice to meet you all. Okay, so let me introduce you to the speakers for the session. Our first speaker today is the practicing lawyer by profession and an animal welfare advocate, Attorney Heidi Marquez-Caguioa. She is the president/program director of Animal Kingdom Foundation in Philippines, followed by Holly Christine Hammond, the education coordinator of Rescue Paws in Thailand. Her focus in providing animal welfare is through education. And last but not least, Dr. Mary Ferdinandez. She is the Director and Chief of Veterinary and Animal Welfare of JAAN Domestic Indonesia Foundation and Dog Meat Free Indonesia. Next. So for this session, each speakers will have about 15 minutes to present their materials. And at the end, we will be having a Q&A session. So attendees, please feel free to input your questions in the chat box, and I will select and pass them on to the speakers. Yes, so we will begin our session with our first speaker. So to Attorney Heidi, you can turn on your camera and you can start screen sharing whenever you're ready. Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, let me check my screen first. Can you see my screen?
Yes, that's nice. Great.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Right. Okay, thank you so much, Khalisya, and thank you so much for that very kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be speaking and sharing with you, all of you actually, how our organization, the Animal Kingdom Foundation in the Philippines, particularly our Rescue and Rehabilitation Center, has been creating an impact in the community through our various programs and collaborations. Animal Kingdom Foundation is a small team with a big vision. AKF is a nonprofit organization. We are a rescue and advocacy group, but actively involved with community engagements as well. And we operate a rescue and rehabilitation center and currently housing over 300 dogs and about 50 cats in our care. As an organization, AKF is small in terms of number of staff and resources. While small, we are proud to say that our community programs have extended not just to our neighboring shelters in towns, but rather across or crossovers various provinces all over the Philippines. Size and resources have not deterred AKF from working towards a huge goal to improve the welfare of companion animals and bring about change on how they are treated by humans. For the past 22 years, AKF has gone a lot of challenges and changes, including its direction and approach to address its core campaign, which is the Ending the Dog Meat Trade. Realizing that it cannot end the trade or the dog meat trade by just raiding and rescuing, AKF has expanded programs and addresses the core reasons for the dog meat trade. As we were attempting to solve the dog meat trade concern, we were also able to identify major community issues involved in the trade of dogs and involved in the trade of dogs and even issues regarding dog and cat ownership. Rabies and animal bites are one of the issues that were identified. The country continues to battle rabies, and to date, it has not achieved its rabies-free Philippines target. From 2020 to 2025, now to 2030, the target keeps moving, and we don't see any end to it. The stray and roaming population issue is also identified and apparent. In the Philippines, roaming and stray animals are the king of the roads. They are everywhere in the streets, posing safety risks to animals as well as health risks, including rabies and vehicular accidents. Responsible pet ownership is a big concern, actually. Also identified as one of the main issues could be the lack of veterinary care. Veterinary care can be expensive in the cities. In the provinces, veterinary care are far and can be inaccessible and again, expensive. Also, we were able to point out cruel handling and treatment of animals. We have seen innocent cruelty to intentional maltreatment, abuse, and even neglect to care for the needs of the animals. And these are very evident in every streets and corners in the country. Indifference and lack of education. Community is unaware about proper care and handling and treatment of animals. People can be oblivious and passive. They claim ignorance of the animal cruelty or the implication of criminal liability for cases that would involve animal cruelty. They are also unaware of the basic essence of animals having feelings too. The lack of political will, mostly in LGUs or the local government units, to implement animal welfare program has also been evident to be present. So what has Animal Kingdom Foundation did over the years so that it can create an impact and it can address these identified issues? To address the identified issues, AKF ensured to align its programs to extend to the community. Low-cost veterinary clinic was open to the public, subsidized veterinary services, tests, and even spay and neuter. We marketed our services within our neighborhood and even went house to house to promote spay and neuter and offer free anti-rabies vaccination for their dogs and their cats. This created an extensive awareness on the significance of healthy and rabies-free pets in the community. Also, AKF has partnered and collaborated with various veterinary practitioners and associations in the Philippines to render or provide veterinary missions. Organizations like the Philippine Veterinary Medical Association, the Philippine Animal Hospital Association, veterinary groups have been going around with AKF in the different places all over the country, especially in those areas that has been identified to be remote and would not have any veterinary access or services. We provide free veterinary spay and neuter, deworming, vaccination, checkups, and the likes. To date, our veterinary missions have reached over thousands of dogs and cats in various municipalities and cities in the country. Also, AKF has ensured that to create an impact, pet education and institutional trainings are in place. During our community spay and neuter, we take the opportunity to address public health and to address the public, to teach them about responsible pet ownership, dog bite prevention, rabies and dog cat behaviors, basic animal welfare laws, coupled with interactive games and activities for both adults and children. During the pandemic, like others, we ensured that we continue our pet education with our online series of pep talks, bringing the same interactive topics online. Schools and even indigenous community has been part of our extensive education targets as well. Our training for the police officers about animal welfare laws, enforcement empowers them with knowledge about animal welfare, investigation of cruelty cases, and even prosecution. With over 30 plus completed and more or less 4,000 police officers educated all over the country, we continue to empower the police enforcers with the view that they will protect animals from any cruelty or inhumane treatment or maltreatment. Disaster response and relief operations. AKF, over the years, has played a significant role in the past and even current natural calamities and disasters. During the Taal volcano eruption way back in 2020, AKF initiated and pushed the local government unit to consider the rescue and relief of farm and companion animals left behind because animals were not allowed to evacuate or to be placed in the evacuation areas. It initiated also a volunteer traffic and dispatch system as part of the Incident Command Center, where more or less 90% of the volunteers would register in our system to be deployed and assist in various rescue, relief, veterinary medical health on-site, and even in pop-up shelters. The recent Typhoon Karina that hit the country in July this year showed how this small organization can run a disaster relief operation. It is not the first, but again, it proves that even if you're small, you can work big. AKF, through what we call Barkanihan, coined from the word bayanihan, meaning a traditional system of mutual community assistance, coined from the word bayan, meaning country. And in our case, however, we used bark versus country. Our active volunteers has played an active role or important role in rolling out and implementing this emergency response initiatives. We would gather our volunteers, call out for partners, donors to help our shelters, feeders, and even pet owners affected by the calamity and set up pet pantries or distribute relief consisting of dog food, cat food, including vitamins and other resources that we would gather, including veterinary access, where we would ask veterinarians who have clinics nearby to provide free or low-cost medication for typhoon impacted pets. Our rescue center is a hub. It has not just been a shelter. It has transformed itself into an education training hub for veterinary students, senior high school for immersion in animal care, shelter medicine, compassion for animals are honed. Tourists that come are called voluntarists because we provide meaning and sense for each and every visit as they share their time, talent, and resources to help us with shelter duties. At the end of the day, they would go home tired, yet fulfilled, and sometimes with an adopted dog or cat in tow. Our rescue center is not just a shelter, as it has expanded its services to create a more meaningful collaboration with the community around it, supportive of other shelters, rescuers, feeders, and even the local government units and villages, as we create a deeper sense of connection towards our goal, a better tomorrow for the animals. Finally, we know that we also have made impact to the community when couples come to celebrate their engagements, wedding proposals, or to have their prenuptial photographs taken at the rescue center with the rescue dogs and cats. Truly, we can say that this is the best way to start the family. We may be tucked in the middle of a sugarcane far, far away from the busy metropolis. But we are proud to say is that the sweet fruit of our programs have far-reaching impact so far. We hope that with this very short presentation, I'm able to inspire and provide everyone valuable insights about partnership, collaborations, and bravery and passion, so that no matter how small you are, no matter how far away you are, you can bring animal welfare and impact to the betterment of animals in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Attorney Heidi. Thank you so much for your presentation. That's a really great presentation. And we are going to move on next to our second presenter. So, Holly, hi.
Hi.
You can start screen sharing now.
Yeah, let me get it. There we go. Start sharing, okay?
It is loading. Yep, great. Okay,
Okay.
we can start now.
So,
Thank you.
hi everyone. My name's Holly, and I'm from an organization called Rescue Paws. So we're a non-profit NGO based in Koh Tao, which is a small town in Thailand, just south of Bangkok. And our main goal is to reduce the stray epidemic through, as Dr. Heidi said, sort of sterilization, vaccination, prevention, adoption, and education. So one of the big things that I want to talk about today is our education project, as this has been kind of quite key to building our relationship with our surrounding communities. So this is where we've gone, like we've worked with both children and adults and gone mostly into local schools, but also done sort of community building activities just to kind of provide this sort of humane education. I think what we see in the area that we are in isn't that there's a lot of deliberate cruelty. We've noticed that actually there's just a lot of neglect and a lot of maybe misunderstanding about what animals need and how, like, what they deserve to be happy, having access to food, water, shelter, and just that even animals can have emotion. So this is something that we've really tried to target in this project. So the 4 areas we try to really focus on is sterilization. So we do have a lot of animals in our area, as do most places in Southeast Asia. So we sterilize animals to control animal population. Unfortunately, rabies, parvovirus, distemper, those are still quite big issues here as well. So we do a lot of preventative care by providing free vaccines to animals and families within our community. Education, where we teach children and adults how to coexist with and interact with animals, and adoption. So all the animals that are in our facilities, in our shelter, they hopefully will all get their happy ending. We have a very high success rate with getting animals both internationally and locally adopted, so that they are safe and living their best lives. One of our key philosophies is the World Health Organization's One Health philosophy. And so this is an approach that shares that humans, people, and the environment all have to coexist for it to be a healthy sort of community. So when we're doing our community development activities, we try and make sure we hit all of these areas. And this is also how we incentivize people, especially adults who may be a bit reluctant, that actually that taking care of their animals and taking care of the environment is also beneficial for them, for their families, and for their children. One of the really exciting things that's happening for us is that we're moving to a new location. So we've been in Koh Tao for about 10 years and we've got to know our community and the people in our community quite well. But what has been quite exciting from the education team about this new location is that we haven't really done any work in terms of community development. So this is the first time we'll be able to have data recorded about how, like, the progress from the very beginning of our sessions to the very end. So we've identified key schools in the closest areas to us, and we're visiting each of these schools to develop, to carry out the CAP theory. So the CAP is knowledge, attitude, practice, and development. So the knowledge, we're starting first off with an 8-week program of knowledge to provide children and adults with the information on how to coexist. So we'll go in with a survey, we identify what people already know, or how people already feel, whether they feel safe, whether they feel comfortable around animals, whether they, with children, it can be, are they safe to walk to school? And then with that knowledge and with our lesson plans or with our curriculum, our goal is to try and shift the attitudes. So generate a more positive relationship between people and animals and generating more empathy. Hopefully then the next step for that, it will be to translate that into practice. So we'll be able to record both children and adults interacting more positively and healthily with the animals around them. And that could even be wanting to bring their animals in for sterilization, wanting to vaccinate their animals. Bite prevention is a key element of our program. So just even watching children approach an animal for the first time, kind of, putting their hand out, reading the body language and the signs of an animal, things like that. And then eventually go into development. So this will be sort of an ongoing project and it will always be a cycle. So the knowledge, like we said, is an 8-week curriculum for animal welfare education. So we do topics such as how to take care of an animal, how to the animal rights, so what your animal has a right to have, like food, water, healthcare, love, things like that. Bite prevention, rabies awareness, and correct nutrition. Unfortunately, one of the things we've seen in the new area is that a lot of people or a lot of communities, children aren't aware of what dogs especially need to eat to be able to be healthy. So that's a new topic that we've added in as well. So actions, we've currently started recording how students interact with dogs on site of the school or dogs in the community, dogs in the area, things like that. We've started also recording whether their parents bring their animals in for treatment, whether that's sterilization, vaccination, or just a trauma case. And practice is hopefully, that will be the next step where we're going to continue recording. Areas we see the most issues are taking care of animals, animal emotions. So especially with children, we've noticed or we've seen in our surveys that children might identify that animals have one emotion, if any. And if that one emotion is usually either anger or hunger, they won't know that an animal can also feel scared or that an animal can feel anxious or happy as well. So those are different things that we've started to include into our curriculum. We've also tried to include body language. So how can you know that a dog is happy? When is the dog giving you the correct signal to say you can come up to them and stroke them? And when are they saying, leave me alone? When are they giving you a warning sign that they might bite you? Things like that. Health and hygiene. So of course, there are a lot of zoonotic diseases that can pass from animals onto people. So this is another area. Rabies is quite a key issue. So this is another area where we talk about how to prevent these things, especially with just basic hygiene, but also with making sure all the preventative measures are put in place, and bite prevention. So from our pre-education surveys, these are just a few statistics. We found that 76 students had already been bitten by a dog. And this is usually from primary 1 to primary 6. So we're talking about as young as 7 years old, all the way up to sort of maybe 12, 13-year-old students. 63% of students thought animals could experience only one emotion. 77% had an animal living on their streets. This is something we've seen quite often in Thailand in general, but especially in our new area, where people might not have pets at home, but they'll have community animals that live on the streets. Everybody loves them, everybody takes care of them until there is a problem, and then there can be a shift in attitude. But out of these students who were regularly interacting with an animal, 56% of them still said they felt unsafe around these animals. Only 38% were able to identify 5 things animals need to be happy, and only 17% knew the safest way to approach a dog. So each school we go into will already have a sick or injured dog on site. So that's usually quite a good starting point to talk about the needs of an animal, or what, as people, as community, what kind of responsibilities we have and how we can intervene, the different measures we can take. This is not just with the children, this is with the teachers and the school directors as well. So Rescue Paws will, of course, medically take care of the animals on site and provide free sterilizations for these animals, but then we'll have the 8-week curriculum to encourage students to bring either their community animals or pets in as well. an interactive session with a friendly dog from Rescue Paws. This has been quite useful and has been quite pivotal in our education program, especially when we noticed that a lot of children were scared of animals. It was quite useful to bring a friendly dog or a fluffy dog in and actually go step by step, have a very interactive session about how to read their body language. And sometimes dogs just don't want to interact with children and they will give those signals, but that's been quite a good key learning point. And other times it's been quite useful to show if the dog is playful, how to still approach them but avoid getting bitten. Once we've done the 8-week curriculum, we have a post-survey to demonstrate the shift in attitudes and practices, but also be able to track it for future teachers, a demonstration of how to care for animals on site, and a free opportunity for students and families to visit our facilities, but also bring their animals with them for any medical advice as well. So in our post-survey so far, so some of the schools are still going through their 8-week curriculum, but in the ones that have completed it so far, we've seen quite a drastic improvement. So 45% were able to correctly identify emotions and body language in dogs. 53% were able to correctly identify the nutritional food that dogs need, the correct food to feed dogs. 31% increase in the attitudes towards dogs. So children said they were more likely to, well, they liked cats and dogs a bit more, but especially felt more comfortable walking down the street or interacting with an animal. And 73% correctly identified what animals need to be healthy and happy. And usually we require them to identify at least 5 things. So that was quite a big change. So we've had quite a big impact throughout Thailand with our Teach the Teacher program. So it's not just our team in Khao Thao, otherwise our impact would be quite small, but we've had great opportunity to collaborate with other teacher training facilities, where we go either into local schools and teach teachers or go to teacher training sessions for teachers who go to other parts of Thailand. So that we'll provide them with free lesson plans, free materials, free curriculum. So these teachers might not teach the full 8-week curriculum, but they might take certain lesson plans that apply to issues in their area. And that's how we've been able to reach some of the more diverse parts of Thailand as well. Another really interesting opportunity we've had is the P.A.W.S project. So this is where we are actually just about an hour or hour and a half away from the Myanmar border. And we've, in the recent years, seen a lot of people crossing the border and settling on this side in Thailand. And they bring their animals with them or they acquire animals when they're here. So we've had an opportunity to collaborate and with another organization who takes care of the people healthcare side of it, and we take care of the animal welfare. So this has been quite key in building a community, but we've faced different challenges, of course, with people crossing the border. There are different agendas and different priorities, and this has been quite a big learning curve for our education team. So here we've worked mostly with adults, and so we had 3 stages for this project, and the first was to go out with our team and identify the number of animals and their needs. The second step was medical care and vaccinations, trying to get out all the emergency situations under control before we do anything else to make sure everybody's safe. And finally, the education and community development, where we've worked a lot more with adults, and we, especially with a lot of people being refugees or there being a lot of legal issues, we wanted to collaborate more and hear people's opinions. So we had like the idea trees, and we've again still working with children, where we've allowed the community to bring their opinions and their ideas to us so that we can develop a new curriculum or new community development activities that will allow us to build a long-term sustainable healthy community for both people and animals. So yeah, thank you for listening. We hope to build a very safe and sustainable community for animals and people together.
Great presentation, Holly. Thank you so much. Okay, so for our last speaker, yes, Dr. Mary, I think, are you able to share your screen now, or do you need, okay.
Yeah, I would like to ask for help.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Yes, go on.
All right, well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity from Asia for Animal to share, to let us share our thoughts and our works from Indonesia to this amazing platform. And thank you for all the participants that joining me in this session, as this session covered also by two great presentations from Attorney Heidi and Holly. Well, I would like to share my presentation from Indonesian setting and perspective, and would like to share, and please feel free to ask about our work in Indonesia regarding animal shelter, as well as dog and cat meat campaign movement that we have been doing for the past 11 years. As I am represent JAAN Domestic Indonesia Foundation, we are also leading member and national coordinator for Dog Meat Free Indonesia Coalition. So I would like to start my presentations. Next slide, please. Okay, well, I would like to introduce my organization. So I'm from Jakarta Animal Aid Network. Well, from JAAN Domestic Indonesia Foundation. So it's a distinct registered division of the Jakarta Animal Aid Network that we are focused in domestic animal welfare, including carriage horses. We have several programs and campaigns. Of course, also our priority now is advocacy for animal welfare policy change. We have the government engagement. We also have a shelter for dogs and cats. We have the sanctuary for ex-carriage horses. And we have now focused also in our recent program that Aid for Carriage Horses, especially our work within Jakarta province. And also for the dog and cat meat campaign, that we have also established this coalition together with our other organization called Dog Meat Free Indonesia. And I will tell you a bit about it in the next slide. And we have also built this digital platform, both in Bahasa Indonesia and also in English. We call it, the project is animalwelfare.id, with the support of our generous funder, P.A.W.S International. So we have been creating and now promoting the use of the animalwelfare.id, as this is also great resources available in Bahasa Indonesia, especially because we see that the lack of needs of animal welfare resources, and especially in animal shelter management resources in Bahasa Indonesia. So that's why this is why we use and we create this platform, as well as we would like to facilitate and accommodate community issue problems that we also tackling and share in this particular session. And also that we also expand and our collaboration throughout the Veterinary School University. We initiate the International Shelter Medicine and Animal Welfare course within Veterinary School University to also, to share and promote about animal shelter management, and also introduce the shelter medicine in Indonesian veterinary students, because there is so much needed for every veterinarian to know about the shelter medicine. Okay, next slide, please. Yes, so this is about also our coalitions that we are also leading member and national coordinator, alongside with our other organization members, which is P.A.W.S International, Humane Society International, Animals Asia, and also Animals Friends Jogja. Well, we have established this coalition since 2017, but our previous work for the dog and cat meat free movement, we already started since 2013. So it means that we have been campaigning and running this program beforehand. It's for 11 years, from the investigations, lobbying, and advocacy, and where we have the coalition established, it's stronger our movement and campaign. So now we have established 67 cities and regions in Indonesia, mainly in Java and Sumatra to issue regulation to ban dog meat and cat meat trade in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is my main, also my main topic, and I would like to share from Indonesian setting and perspective that we have been, we have been 16 years from our organization working for animal shelters. We have the experience, also the community issue, the neighborhood issue. We have been experienced that same kind of issue. So what we have been practiced, what we have been experienced that we would like to share, and what is the current situation, and this is why we share the case study from Indonesia. Well, as you know, as the number of animal shelters, independent rescuers, and for instance, animal hoarding cases increase in Indonesia, the dynamics between these shelters and surrounding communities, which is mean the neighborhood, is increasingly complex. Well, I would like to present this case study explaining the growing presence of shelters, of animal shelters, and of course the challenge that animal shelter face in the neighborhoods, and why is it important to imply effective shelter management practice to fostering positive relationship within communities. Because at JAAN Domestic, we believe that if we can continue promote the effective and the importance to practice the shelter management, it has been working, and it will be one of the biggest solutions and contributed to foster a positive relationship between the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So as we have already mentioned earlier, that it is growing numbers of animal shelters and rescuers in Indonesia. So by all means, it means that the awareness of animal welfare in Indonesia is increasing. But as these animal shelters establishment and independent rescue efforts, illustrate a biggest and increasing commitment to animal welfare in Indonesia, but it's also led to a challenge, including animal hoarding cases. And of course, with the lack of resources, implementation of shelter management practice, the tensions between shelters and the neighbors will be a challenge as well. Well, these dynamics often stem from misunderstanding, right, about the goals of animal shelters and the need for community support, because the goal and the purpose of having animal shelter, which is not, like permanent solutions to animal populations and increasing irresponsible pet ownership cases in the neighborhood or in the area or even in country. But this is like community has to be also involved and support. But oftentimes animal shelters, that independent animal shelters are started by, because they have this heart to helping stray animals or the animals in need, but because the lack of support, they often, leading and working this alone and without any, many supports of other colleagues or other members of their shelter, because they're running it independently, and it cause, there's no shelter management practice. So they have many issues like, noise, odor, and overall impacting the shelter on the living environment. And it's becoming like animal hoarding cases instead of animal shelter. So many miscommunication and lack of awareness of the shelter mission can lead to the frictions. And that's why it's crucial for shelter to engage proactively with the neighbors, and so creating opportunities for dialogue and transparency to alleviate concern and foster goodwill. Because sometimes this is the case. This is the case study from Indonesia, that many of independent rescue or private shelters fostering like bunch of animals, like like very small living houses with population reach 50 cats, like 100 cats, and it's very like density. They're living in very dense of housing complex, and it creates a miscommunication, also friction between the neighbor, because if they are not operating beyond their capacity of care, and it also leads to the mismanagement of waste management from the animals, and also there is no this lack of knowledge about, especially in this case, like for dogs, behavior information. So they don't know about how to create a calming and peaceful condition for the population in the shelter. So that is also very big challenge. Next slide, please. I think this is also represent many areas in the world. I don't think it is also an issue for Indonesian only, but I think it's happening all around the world, because this is like a disease and mental health disorder also from the owner or the ones that having this condition. So, but this is also coming from together, like the increasing of people who are having animal shelters, that lack of information or of implementation of shelter management. Next slide, please. And yeah, this is also like for example of FIDU rescuer or private shelters. Next slide, please. So yes, so this is like we mentioned earlier, that why this is important to have shelter management practice, as this is one of the solution, and I think will be the biggest contribution factor to the success of having a good relationship with neighbors or community, is that having to imply this shelter management practice. And one of them is like, we have like 7 pointers about the shelter management practice information, where the key components of effective shelter management practice include the regulated intake and adoption process. Because while we establish strict guidelines for animal intake, it helps prevent overcrowding and maintain shelter capacity. Because if we operate beyond our capacity of care in our shelter, that will be jeopardize the animal welfare for every individual of our animal in the shelter. And also, if they can have well-defined adoption process through screening of potential adoptions, and as also, I think the purpose of animal shelter is to educate people and promoting responsible pet ownership wherever they are. And second key point is facilities and maintenance. If we can ensuring that shelters are clean, safe, and well maintained, it's essentially aligning with community expectation, right? So if you have a regular cleaning schedule, and we have proper waste management and adequate space for animals, can contribute to a positive environment, as well as important knowledge of especially animal behavior, and especially for dog behavior. Because a lot of an issue, people want to have fixed and quick solutions. For example, there is also very concerning practice from Indonesian shelters that they using debarking method. That also very concerning, and it's like quick fix to to maintain a calming, not a calming, but voiceless dog population shelter. So this is very concerning. It's very heartbreaking that it's still practicing in already years now, and we have been campaigning to stop debarking, and it's very needed to understand about dog's behavior rather than quick fix with, to cut the voice cord of the dogs, every dog. So because we experience ourselves in JAAN domestic, we have trained our team members, and we can create that with our 110 dog population. We have created the calming and peaceful dog population, which is very hard in the beginning, but it's very good, and it's not overwhelming our work in the future. Yeah, so why is this important as well? Because the noise will be really become a huge contributing factor and jeopardize your relationship with the neighbor. That is for sure. If we cannot control in a human way, in a good understanding dog behavior way, we will have such a huge problem, and the debarking is not a solution. That's really quick fix, and that is it's unacceptable practice if we want to create and being example for animal welfare forefront. Okay, next slide, please.
Excuse me, Dr. Mary.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have 2 minutes to wrap up the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be quick. Thank you. Well, it is important also to have a staff training and animal care, and of course, having and building community engagement and outreach. You can always, offering to do something free for your neighborhood, like provide free vaccinations or provide free education or sterilization if you can. So this will build your good relationship with your neighbor. Next slide, please. So this is also, if you can, this is the effective or shelter management practice that you will have developed crisis management and communication beforehand. So if anything's happened to your shelter, you can always have a good, already grip for what you will do and what steps you need to take to solve the problem or the issue. And this is also a feedback mechanism you can create, and this will help you to, to get understanding what this problem from your shelter and the other side. Okay, next slide, please. And this is very important, that through collaboration with local authorities. Next slide, please. Just touch base, this very important. We can always use the ASV guidelines, Asian guideline and best practice shelters, and we also co-initiate this Indonesian best practice animal shelter care. But this is important because it's very different with the ASV guidelines, for the implementation. But this is the ASV guideline is the core set samples that we can use to create our own policy and adjusting in Indonesia setting. Okay, next slide, please. Well, this is our JAAN domestic shelter, and please, next slide, please. And this is, I would like to share the government shelter facility in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Okay, this is for the last one. So this is also the solution from Indonesian perspective, that in 2023, we at JAAN Domestic has the opportunity to lobby Ministry of Agriculture to talk and push the importance of government regulation, creating minimum standards of operational in shelters. While recognizing the need of the standards of animal shelter operation, the Ministry of Agriculture Indonesian government introducing animal shelter regulation that aimed at establishing and implemented in 2026. Well, JAAN Domestic has been actively involved as one of the several NGOs consultant in this process. Well, we're contributing to policy change that will create clear guidance for shelter management, while these regulations are a critical step toward improving the welfare of animals in shelters while also addressing community relations. Next slide, please. Well, harmonious living also, I think, is mentioned earlier that this is the key of the success. And next slide, please. Well, this is the conclusion. So as the landscape of animal shelters in Indonesia continues to evolve, it is imperative to prioritize relationship with surrounding communities. So this is the key take home message. By adopting effective management practice and fostering open communication, shelters can build goodwill and support among residents. And with the support of government regulation and community engagement, a more harmonious coexistence between animal shelters and their neighborhoods will contribute to the overall welfare of animals and the enrichment of community life. Next slide, please. I think that's about it. Please feel free to connect with me, with our foundation as well. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mary. Sorry to rush you. Yes, okay, so we are entering the Q&A session now. So if the speakers would turn on their camera, and we can start taking questions from the audience. There are already some questions here in the chat box. Let me see it. It is from Nicole. So Nicole lives in Beaconsfield, Quebec. It's 5 a.m. there. So thank you for taking your interest in AfA Connect and for attending in so early in the morning for 2 days. They're asking that the city shelter in their city is barely used, but it only has 3 cages and is off limits to the public. How do I discuss reforming the shelter with the city when the city threatens legal trouble for even posting photos of the shelter online? So I think they're asking, like, how do you take over the shelter? I think, how do you propose like a takeover to the government?
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
I think what's the name for the question is from Nicole, right?
Yes, from Nicole.
Yeah, I think Nicole has to check first to do her due diligence, who owns the property, and of course to check also the legal policies or laws relating to a takeover or a transfer, and then start laying down, of course, also her of a framework of how she will operate the shelter, and submit a proposal to their to the municipality or to the government where that shelter may be located. I think it's very important that she'll be able to also sustain the shelter operations, because it's overwhelming to operate a rescue center or a shelter for that matter, and hence she should have all this planned out, and her legal anchor should be available.
Thank you, Attorney Heidi. I think I misunderstood the question a little bit. I think it's not taking over, but it is to reform the shelter. So I think like maybe she's asking, you know, like the government to reform the shelter better, since it's like off limits to the public and it only has like 3 cages. Maybe she wants an advice on how to communicate with the government on how to make it better.
Yeah, I think for us here, whenever we would have issues involving the government, well, it actually depends on the political and the climate in in each particular country, but we would usually approach the government for a problem and offer a solution. We would offer always a collaborative approach, and always diplomatic in this particular occasion, because you would want them to also be on your side. So that would be, I think, the first step, and of course should have a plan also on how to help the shelter in terms of partnering with the government that's operating the shelter.
Yes, thank you so much. Does Dr. Mary or Holly have any comments or answers?
Yes, if I can jump in also. I would like to share our experience also from Indonesia, because in Indonesia we have, for example, the similar situations back in 2013 and 2014, while I think I was started joining JAAN domestic just after I graduated from veterinary school. We have that same issue, that we see the mismanagement of the government shelters, and we would like to help, but at that time we don't know how we can, to get involved. And because of that political image of course, for the government's institutions, so it's also restrictive. They give us a restriction to take pictures or promoting, and so many also people are complaining and protest about how they operate. But then we offer advice. We trying to create communications that we would like to help, and we want bashing them or promoting, or to put their bad name on it, because sometimes their intention is not doing something like that, but it's just like because of the lack of resources and also lack of advice they have been experiencing. So I think my key point is that having a good intention and clear communication to the government, and explaining what we are offering, like we giving them options and solutions, not only criticizing, but we bring it on the table that we will help to provide solutions together. I think that's also one of communication approach that we can use, and it shows very effective. Now it's one of the Jakarta is the only one now having animal shelters in Indonesia, and it's now become an example for others areas, cities and regions, all provinces in Indonesia, that they have already starting the shelter management practice, while still far from perfect, of course, but at least they show that they're trying, and they're even asking us a couple of times to help give resources about animal shelter management. So I think that's because of we took that positive communication approach, and start to working together instead of only criticizing. So I think that's from our experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mary. Holly, do you have anything to add?
I think it's mostly been covered, but just maybe one more thing that we've kind of seen, especially in Thailand, is that different shelters or different rescues have different priorities as well, and animal welfare can look different to different people. So like we see quite often, one of our beliefs is that some of the animals, once they're sterilized and vaccinated, are actually better off going back to the community they came from, whereas others are better off living in the shelter. Sometimes a lot of our best work we do out on the field, like we'll take all of our medical equipment and out to jungles or communities, and the animals still are free roaming, but they're living a better quality of life there than they would on our facilities. So that might be also important to consider when kind of coming up with solutions together, like you guys said, collaboratively coming up with solutions, that animal welfare can look different in different areas to different governments and to different rescues as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so basically, Nicole, I hope that answers your question, and I agree completely. I think the positive approach is definitely, I think it will definitely be more heard rather than, I think there's a thing, I think this is also covered in the previous AfA Connect session, like in Indonesia, we use like virality, like a post goes viral, like bad photos go online and people are like being outraged by it. But instead, I think we can turn that around into like a more positive approach in order to work with the government. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Nicole. I think she is also asking an additional question. I think it is directed for you, Holly. Um, yeah, so she is asking, how do I create a humane education program?
So we're happy to share all of our resources. So we're happy to share sort of the curriculum, the surveys that we've done, the lesson plans, or different materials. Sometimes I get teachers that are so creative, they kind of take a material, a game, and like build this incredible lesson around it. But we're happy to share that if you would like to take that on, share it with your community, build it up, give us feedback and everything like that. But usually I found the most productive thing is to almost do it as a student-led project. So you understand what your community needs or what your students need, what their concerns are. It's amazing how much people will tell you what upsets them, what they're scared of, what worries them. And then it's much easier to kind of find those gaps in knowledge and build a curriculum around that instead of just kind of projecting what we think might be necessary. And that's why I said it was quite important to highlight that in this new area we've gone to, we haven't seen a lot of cruelty. So usually, like in our original curriculum, there was a lot about animal cruelty and sort of that deliberate kind of lack of empathy. Whereas here, what we're seeing is a lot more that people do care, but they might not have the resources or they might not have the knowledge to effectively deliver on animal welfare. So that was kind of a bit of a shift that we had to make. We have so many animals come in that people genuinely bring in their arms crying, not realizing that their animal is so sick. So that's kind of one of the areas that we've identified is a key issue, and that's how we've tailored our education. But I'm happy to share all the resources if that's helpful.
Are all the resources available in Rescue Paws website?
Yeah, so they're not available on the website, but I'm happy to email. They're in a Google Drive, and I'm happy to email that if that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I think Nicole is putting her email in the chat box.
I
So yeah,
will take that now.
yes.
Thank you.
Nicole, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I think I will be adding more questions. I want to ask, is there ever an opportunity where shelters collaborate or work together with the neighbors? And if so, then can you tell us what kind of an occasion was it? I think Attorney Heidi can go first. Sorry, Attorney Heidi, you are on mute.
Sorry. When we say collaborate among shelters, maybe there's a whole lot of opportunities there, like for example, adoption, spay and neuter, sharing of resources, and yes, that's very much possible. And I've mentioned in our presentation that we have been assisting and providing assistance or help to smaller shelters in our neighborhood, providing them also free spay neuter, if dog food or cat food resources that may lack, that they may not have, and we have extra. And also in terms of collaboration or helping them out in other matters relating to cases or issues, they would usually seek our advice, and we would always gladly provide them advices. So I think, yes, it is really very possible. What is not just possible for us at the moment is the sharing of rescues. Like for example, they would be full and we would have some more space. We are very particular in terms of our biosecurity and a lot of other things like our capacity, manpower. So we just don't, we cannot take in that we cannot manage, and we have always been emphatic on that with the other shelters, and hence only with that aspect, but the rest we have always been helping, assisting, and collaborating with the nearby and other actually rescue groups in our community.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think that's the one part that that we cannot share. Yeah, because well, to be honest, I haven't said this, but me and Dr. Mary, we work together in JAAN Domestic, and it is very relatable that our shelters are actually close to other shelters as well. And that's the one thing that is very, very hard to collaborate on. Yeah, because we need to maintain the biosecurity of our own shelters. If we do not follow that protocol, then I mean, like, all hell break loose. So
Correct. That's
yeah,
true. That's very true.
yeah. Okay. So Dr. Mary, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, for sure. I think we already, Dr. Chicha's already mentioned that we also, it's also a challenge to work together with shelters, and as particular, she mentioned about our neighbor shelters, which is not uh, actually it's animal hoarding case situations, but as we have in the district that there is no particular regulations of animal shelters, like because in Indonesia there's the only city or province that have creating a regulation about animal shelter is only in Jakarta. So we are located in Bogor Regency, where there's none of any of it, of any regulation about it. And I think it's important as well, if you want to collaborate or working together, you have to you find the similar, or shelters or rescue groups that having a similar visions with you, not identical vision and mission, particularly because there's none, and every organizations or every animal shelters or every community, of course they will have their own policy, they will have their own regulations, internal regulations and decision, of course, that we have to understand the thing about that. Every organization will have that their different policies, right? So by all means, that if we want to collaborate together with the similar, animal shelters or rescue groups, that we find the ones that, we can work together. And we have been working together with several animal shelters and organizations, such as in Indonesia, we collaborate together also closely with Nata Satwa Nusantara Foundation, led by Davina, and other organizations, and we create a platform together. We call it Animal Protection Coalition, Indonesian Animal Protection Coalitions, where we work together as animal shelter and provide sharing resources, and also provide creating a platform community by WhatsApp group. So create, many animal shelters and animal welfare organization together, and we share resources. And of course, like Chicha and Attorney Heidi already mentioned, also because of this, cases are coming, and dogs or cats, or now in our case carriage horses needs to be rescued, and we cannot save them all, but with this platform we can share the cases. If our, we cannot, because of our capacity is at maximum capacity now, and we share the case with other organizations or other rescue groups, that we can collaborate together. And by this also collaboration, we can share our resources. It's not only our resources, they can share also their expertise, their resources, so we can work together. But yeah, it can only be worked out by if we can, find a good and similar of similar interests and similar mission from other animal shelters or animal rescue groups or organizations. Otherwise, you cannot work together, of course. So yeah, that's my from my input.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mary. Holly?
Yeah, I think I completely agree. But one more thing that we've been able to collaborate with that is actually the human power, especially on like the medical team. So if we have a case that maybe our vet team have never seen before, so we've had a dog with heartworm come through, which isn't big in Thailand, and Our vet team had never kind of seen it before, and it was good to have other rescues to collaborate with and share insight with on like maybe if they've treated heartworm before, how to like what was the best method, where did they get the medication from, things like that. So yeah, those sort of that brain power has been quite a useful source to share as well.
Yes. I have another additional question for you, Holly. I heard that Rescue Paws is moving to another land.
Yeah.
So is it like your main headquarter?
So that will be, so we've only got one place at the moment, and we're going to move the whole clinic to this new location, which is why I was saying it's quite useful as the education team to go out into this new community and start building that relationship early. So that once we do arrive, everybody's kind of ready with their animals and say, you know, we're here to sterilize, we're here to vaccinate and things like that. So yeah, we will move the whole clinic over to the new location, hopefully around April next year.
Oh, that's nice. But I mean, is it an area where like many people's houses are close to the area?
Yeah, so we've got the land we've got. One of the things we wanted is to have enough land that we wouldn't negatively affect the community with the sound and the, you know, some people don't like animals and things like that, but we're surrounded by enough of a community that we would still have a lot of animals. And one of the other things, though, is that so where we are now, we're quite close to the city. So there are quite a few animal rescue organizations here already, whereas where we're going, it's a bit more remote. So we will be the only animal rescue organization there. So we're hoping we'll have a bigger impact for that community.
Yes, that's really nice. I mean, that's great to hear. Just for your information and for everybody's information, John is also looking for a land because we
Ah,
need to move soon too.
yeah.
Yeah, but we haven't found the right place yet. And I'm just wondering, like, what is the process like? Do you go to like your new neighbors' places and like anticipate them, like we're gonna build, like a clinic here, and there are gonna be many animals in here. Do you do that?
So we held a community meeting with the town elders, the town sort of leaders, just sort of announcing that. So this land got donated to us very generously. So we kind of let them know what our intentions with this land was. But that's where I say we also did community buildings and allowed people to voice some of their concerns and voice some of the things they were worried about. Mostly people were worried about noise,
Yeah.
which or about attracting more animals or spreading diseases, which are quite legitimate concerns. But that's where then we can do kind of education sessions and activities about how we will kind of have that security in place, the impact we will hope to have. And that's where we've also gone into schools with the children who are quite scared and nervous around animals, trying to create a positive impact or a positive attitude before we even arrive. But yeah, that's how we approached it, just allowing people to kind of come at us with all of their concerns and address them individually. And we've even invited some of the people to come to our current facility so they can see how we function and how some of those concerns is although very, very legitimate, we do have them under control. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great information for us at John as well. I think we need to take notes on that, especially with like the new neighbors. We don't know what they're gonna be like. Either they'll be cool with it or they will be,
Yeah,
well,
so another thing I can send, maybe I don't know if it's useful, but we, especially with the school, so we've done surveys for children, just because sometimes children are a lot more honest as well, and they reflect some of the general attitudes more vocally. But we've done parts of our survey about what they already know, so kind of key knowledge, but also just how they feel in general, around approaching an animal or having animals on the street or having more animals in their area. And that's where it can be quite useful again to sort of see the gaps of what children think. And children are like dominoes. You push the first one and then they bring it to their parents, and that kind of spreads within the community. So that's another approach we've taken.
yes, I agree. Okay, so thank you all so much for the answers. Does any of the speakers have any add-on comments about the session? Any last words? No? Okay. Then because I'm conscious of time, I need to wrap up our Q&A session and end the day 2 of AfA Connect. So thank you so much for the speakers and also to all of our attendees for attending the session of AfA Connect. In conclusion, I agree that in order to build a strong community and shelter environment, we need to coexist together harmoniously and also create a healthy surrounding for humans, animals, and also the environment. And so yeah, if you have so if you have time, please take a moment to fill out our feedback form so we can make our events more constructive and more engaging for you. You can scan the QR code on the screen. Next, please. Yes, so I would also like to take this opportunity to share our upcoming AfA Connect. The event is slated for the end of the year. That's happening on the 12th and 13th of November. Registration for the next AfA Connect will be open soon, so please stay tuned for more information. And if you want to know more about the event, please go to asiaforanimals.com/connect. Next, please. I would also like to tell you all that we have an offline event coming up in October, the Asia Farm Animal Day. It will take place in Hanoi, Vietnam in October 9 to 11, 2024. And our Farm Animal Coalition is also going to be having their 3rd regional event in India this year, and the date will soon be announced. Next, please. So for our events for next year, we will have the Asia for Animals conference in Taipei on August 25 to 29. Please head to asiaforanimals.com/events if you want to stay up to date regularly. And I hope that you guys can also come to our big conference because this is our offline event, so we can see each other in real life. Next, please. And I also recommend all of you to check out Asia for Animals podcast. There are so many insightful episodes featuring speakers and experts around the globe who share their knowledge and experiences. Our podcast is available on many platforms like Spotify and YouTube, so go check it out. So yes, that wraps up for today's session of AfA Connect. Thank you so much to our speakers and to attendees. Thank you so much for your participation. I will see you next year or in November in the next AfA Connect. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye all. You're welcome to leave the room. Thank you.
Thank you.